Okay, so today we're going to be playing a little bit of What Happened to Edith Finch. I was getting a little bit of disengaged with Ghost of Tsushima, so I wanted to swap things up, play something that can be nice and quickly finished. I think it's about a 2.5, 3 hour game, narrative based. So hopefully it'll be interesting. Hopefully it will engross us all. And away we go, I guess.
A lot of this isn't going to make sense to you, and I'm sorry about that. I'm just going to start at the beginning, with the house.
Okay. I'm currently playing on Switch, so if anyone has played this game on another platform or anything like that and
I
is
lived
noticing
here
that
until I
it's
was
not very
11,
pretty,
but I wasn't allowed inside half the rooms.
that would probably be why.
I hadn't been back since my brother Lewis's funeral.
I'm liking this little writing that's appearing up on the screen.
Inner
That's a
will,
nice little touch.
my mother left me a key, but didn't tell me what it unlocked. Maybe she thought I'd know. Or she thought that the mystery would be enough to bring me back.
So I'm assuming her mother and her brother are dead. Not many people are alive. I don't know too much about this story. I know it's...
No one had driven this way in a long time, but I saw a few hoof prints.
No, it's mainly based on the story of past relatives. And how they died, or how they lived, maybe? I'm not too sure. We'll find out together, I guess.
The truth is, even after I inherited the house, I never thought I'd come back to it. But now I had questions about my family that only the house knew the answers to. The house was exactly like I remembered it, the way I'd been dreaming about it. As a child, the house made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't put into words.
I really like how they're writing the narrative on the, I guess, on on the camera, the
Now,
wall.
as a 17-year-old, I knew exactly what those words were. I was afraid of the house.
Geez, 17 owns a house. That's not bad. The worst situation to be in.
I hoped the key might unlock the front door. It didn't. Looking in, I felt like the house itself had been waiting for me.
So far, the voice acting is pretty on point. I'm liking Edith's voice. I'm assuming it's Edith that we're playing as. Control scheme's a bit weird, so I apologise if it seems like I don't know what I'm doing. It's just the R button is to interact with things, and then you have to press certain directions.
Crawling through the doggy door used to be a lot easier when I was 11. The power had been turned off the night we left. For the first time in years, I felt like I was home.
Jeez, they really left this place in a bit of a...
But instead of a family, there were just memories of one.
in a bit of a state.
Like how only one restaurant would deliver to our house, so we had Chinese a lot.
Just going to quickly play around with the settings just to make it a little bit brighter if possible. There we go. Yeah, there we go.
Or how
There we
after
go.
Lewis started working at the cannery, we all got sick of eating salmon. Except our cat, Molly.
The devs have done a really good job at making this house feel like someone has actually lived in it.
The table was still a wreck from the night we left.
Why'd they leave?
It was
Such
like a
hurry?
bomb had gone off, killing everyone but sparing the furniture.
So confused.
My mom was the only one of us who could imagine Great-Grandma Edie living in a nursing home. Nothing in the house looked abnormal. There was just too much of it, like a smile with too many teeth. Even the fireplace had a story. Edie told me the bricks came from the original house, after it sank.
Sinking house, eh?
Mom always told me to stay out of the basement, so I wasn't too surprised when the key didn't fit.
So what did Mum leave the key for if it's not for the basement? What else is it for?
Great-Grandpa Sven built a music box for Barbara, along with the rest of the house. My mom wasn't much of an optimist, but she never stopped believing that my brother Milton was alive.
Jeez. This family has gone through some stuff.
After Milton disappeared, Mom sealed up all the bedrooms. Then Edie retaliated and drilled peepholes. Edie's father, Odin, built the original house.
Jeez, this house has had some generations of people living in it, eh?
Whenever people ask me about my family, the first thing they always want to know about is Barbara.
So they had an actor in the family, I guess.
Mom must have locked the third floor stairs on the night we left.
What didn't Mum lock? Honestly. Okay. Mum literally locked everything, glued it shut.
I spent a lot of time playing in Great Uncle Walter's room. I think my mom sometimes regretted not sealing it up. Lewis told me there were secret passages, but I never believed him. Turns out, my mom was really good at keeping secrets.
Okay. Jeez.
Now it was time to find out what my mom had been afraid of.
I would love to have a secret passage like that in my house.
From the paintings on the wall, it was clear my brother Milton had been here before me. Reading this, maybe it sounds like I had a plan. But I had no idea what was behind that door. Just like I had no idea where all this was gonna lead. I grew up looking at Molly's room through the peephole. Molly's gerbil had a tiny bedroom with its own even tinier gerbil cage.
That is absolutely phenomenal. I want that.
Being inside for the first time, I felt like I'd stepped behind a painting.
Jeez, she's dead too. Everyone in this family seems to be dead.
December 13th, 1947. Dear Diary, I'll be gone soon, but I wanted to tell somebody about what's gonna happen. It started when Mom sent me to bed without dinner. I woke up and I was starving, so I looked around for something to eat. The gerbil food was dry, but I didn't mind it.
Okay, we ate a piece of carrot.
I thought about eating Christopher, but I held back.
Poor girl's so hungry. Let her eat. It's very weird
I
being
kept eating
distraught.
and eating.
What the hell? Oh my god.
I ate a lot of things that night.
She just ate toothpaste. That surely isn't good
Then
for
I
you.
heard chirping outside my window. It was a barn swallow going back to her nest. I reached out for her.
What's happening?
And suddenly,
Don't tell me she's gonna fall. What?
I was a cat. I tried to be quiet, but the bird was really scared. Mom and Dad didn't even look at me.
What's happening? This must be her dream or something, right?
I jumped and I almost got her. I could tell she was getting really tired. Now I was up in the big tree. I promised Dad I wouldn't climb it anymore. All I cared about was eating that mama bird. I gobbled her up. And suddenly, I was an owl. First, all I heard was the wind. Then I heard little teeth nibbling in the grass.
This is the trippiest game I have ever played.
Rabbits. I imagined his face looking up and seeing mine through my
Jeez.
talons. I swallowed him up, and I didn't chew one bit. Then I flew off to find something
It's
bigger.
been intense. Something bigger than a
A
rabbit,
mama
eh?
rabbit.
A mama rabbit. Okay. We got the mama rabbit.
She was almost too big to carry. I started choking, but I couldn't stop eating. Suddenly, I was a shark.
What? This sounds like the most amazing dream you can ever experience, really. Other than being a shark on ground.
I
Oh
rolled
my
off the cliff
god.
and into the ocean.
What is happening?
Now, I was hungrier than ever. I wanted fat, juicy seals. I tore off her flipper, and it tasted really good.
This is a weird dream. And this is why you don't send your children to bed without food, people.
I grabbed on tight, but I was so hungry, I jumped out of the water. When I opened my eyes, everything had changed.
Now, this bloody snake.
Now I was a monster, and I smelled people everywhere.
The devs
I was
have really
big,
done
and
something interesting
real
here.
quiet.
Whoa!
I wanted to stop, but also I didn't.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What should we do with the drunken sailor?
After the last passenger, I was still hungry. And across the water, I saw
Someone sounds like she's bloody
something I had to have, so I swam towards
gluttony
it.
or something.
I slithered onto the sand, and the good smell went into an old pipe.
This little girl is very well spoken of, if I do say so myself. My biggest fear, a snake coming out of a toilet.
I got closer and closer.
So that happens in Australia from time to time. I don't know if it's the snakes that come into the toilet or they come out of the toilet. The thought of a snake being able to come out of the toilet,
All my stomach started growling.
I think is a bit more terrifying. I mean, if it's
And
coming into the
suddenly,
toilet or you're in
That
there
was
too.
me again. I held my breath for a long time, but I couldn't hear anything. I think it's waiting for me to fall asleep. But it's not going to wait much longer. It needs to feed, and we both know I will be delicious.
Is this a horror game?
I'm not sure if I believed all of that, but I'm sure Edie would have.
It's nice to be tall again, that's for sure.
this will be obvious later, but my mom never told me any of these stories. Edie would have, but Mom didn't like bringing up the past. Though, when we adopted a stray kitten, she was the one who named it Molly. I spent a lot of time in Great-Grandma Edie's room. Edie knit me a new pair of gloves every year, just in time to replace the old ones. Louis died a week before we left, but Edie had already started to memorialize him.
This family is super
Her room was
weird.
like a museum.
If Molly was from the 40s or 30s, 40s, and
For
they've
500
left her
years, the
room there
Finches
as
have been
is.
famous throughout Norway for their fortune and misfortune. Odin Finch buries the latest victims of the family curse, his wife Ingeborg and their newborn son, Johan.
Jeez.
On January 7th, 1937, he set sail with his family and his house, hoping to leave the curse behind.
Setting sail with his house. That's probably just leave the house. If running from a curse, just leave everything behind, surely.
But 40-foot waves off the coast of Washington send the house and Odin to the bottom of the sea.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Odin's daughter Edie, with husband Sven and baby Molly, step ashore on their new home, Orcas Island. Odin Finch is the first to be buried in the new family cemetery. His daughter Edie is already dreaming of a new Finch house.
How has this family even survived this long if they all just dropping like flies? That's crazy.
Whatever's wrong with this family, it goes back a long ways.
Edith, 1999 to whatever year it is. Walter dead, 2005, so Edie, 2010. So it's probably something like 2012 maybe at the moment. I'm gonna do this. Am I the last Finch? I'm gonna assume it must be the case.
When Edie told people Sven was killed by a dragon, she could also have said he was building a dragon-shaped slide that collapsed. She could have, but she didn't. One summer, they evacuated the island, but Edie refused to go. For a few weeks, she was a celebrity. I hadn't thought of myself as Edith Jr. for a long, long time. Edie gave a big interview about a mole man living under the Finch house. My mom was furious.
Edie sounds like a grandma that I would love to hang out with. Okay, so it seems I need to find all the secret entries and whatnot to get around the
Even in her
house.
90s. Sometimes Edie seemed a lot younger than my mother. The only trace Grandpa Sam's first wife, Kay, left on the house was the pink bathroom.
A horrendous bathroom.
It was a
Like, at least
pretty
get
big trace.
At least get rid of the furry stuff. Oh, the key's gonna open up more secret entries.
There's a secret in this bathroom. It's in the last place you would look. It isn't in the cupboard. It's hidden in this book.
That's pretty cool. Someone went through a lot of effort for these secrets. I guess Milton was here as well. I think Milton was the little brother.
knew Grandpa Sam had a twin. And that he never talked about him. I guess my grandpa didn't like history any more than my mom did.
Another Finch that died, eh?
How I Want to Remember My Brother by Sam Finch. The thing I remember is that when he made up his mind, that was it. My brother said he'd die before he ate another mushroom. And he did.
That's a way to look at it. Come on. Swing! This is much harder to swing than in real life, just putting that out there. I know he only has one leg. Is there a reason that he's not using the leg that's not in a bloody cast? Oh, I'm meant to use both analog sticks.
At Barbara's funeral, we swore we'd never be afraid again. And he wasn't. I think Calvin always wanted to fly.
Oh, this must be Calvin, eh?
Sam! Calvin! Dinner's ready! Coming!
But that day, he finally made up his mind to do it.
No.
I told him going around was impossible.
No.
Maybe if I hadn't said that,
Jeez, no wonder.
Calvin!
He doesn't want to talk about
I'm
his
not
brother.
gonna tell you again!
maybe if the wind hadn't picked up, then maybe he'd still be here. But I doubt it.
I feel like this is something we've all
I think
attempted
he'd
as
already
kids.
made up his mind. That's what I want to remember about my brother. The day he made up his mind to fly. And he did.
Holy shit. That's a bit fucking dark. Jeez.
Calvin's story felt strangely familiar. When I was younger, I remember trying to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, I think we've all tried to do the exact same thing. This is a bit of a heavy story, I feel.
After the funeral, Edie roped off Calvin's half of the room.
Edie seems to want to make sure that everything stays the same, regardless of what's actually happened.
Mom said Grandpa Sam enlisted at 18 and never set foot in the room again.
This house, I want it. Minus the curse.
The passages were a pretty tight fit. They'd obviously been built for smaller hands and bellies.
Oh wait, she's 17 and she was born in 99, so it's 2016 right now. I'm an idiot. Hey, we're back in here. Yeah, so let's just open up so we can have shortcuts later, I guess. Jeez.
Growing up, I always thought of Barbara as a child star. I never thought about how hard it must have been for her afterwards.
Child fame would always be hard, I guess. Especially if your career doesn't take off, you'd always be remembered as the has-been, I guess.
Of all the stories people wrote about Barbara's death, I'm surprised Edie saved this one.
Old Jack here with another ghastly tale inspired by America's most unfortunate family. I'm calling it The Surprise Ending of Barbara Finch. As a child star, Barbara was famous for her scream. Now at 16, she was all washed up. A has-been. But in a lucky break, she'd been asked to perform her signature scream at a local convention for monster movie fans. It was just the boost her career needed. Unfortunately, her scream hadn't aged well.
Getting better. I think you just need the right motivation.
That's
Her
great.
biggest fan and
That scream was
current
rough.
boyfriend, Rick, was about to demonstrate when...
Now that was a great scream.
It was Barbara's father, Sven. He'd slipped into a table saw and had to be rushed to the emergency room. So Barbara got stuck babysitting her youngest brother, Walter. Her convention comeback was cancelled.
Okay, I'm hearing frustration, but I'm not hearing terror. What if I tried...
A gang of hoodlums in Halloween masks have been terrorizing Orcas Island tonight. Police are urging residents to...
That came from the basement.
You're right! Also, I loved your delivery on that. Why is your basement door locked?
Because my dad likes making puzzles and secret passages. There's a key hidden in the music box. The secret is to keep winding and winding until finally the key pops out.
Well, I guess that's
Thanks,
how we're gonna
babe.
get the key there.
I'll be back in a sec.
20 minutes later, Rick hadn't returned. So Barbara went to look for him, right on cue.
Jeez.
She reached for the music box. And as she wound the key, she listened for Rick, but the house was silent.
That's not helping the situation, that creepy music. But this comic book strip playing out is very, very cool.
She found Rick's crutch and imagined the worst.
There's some blood on the ground. Is he trying to scare her so he can get a terrified scream? He definitely is trying to scare her, surely.
The gang's leader is the infamous Hookman killer, Dr. Carl Hamill, who impaled and then ate his family 10 years ago tonight.
That must have been where Papa Sven hurt himself.
The old bridge rattled and grew still.
Oh dear!
Oh!
Yeah, I knew it.
Barb, relax. I
Rather
was just
expect
trying to scare
that's
you
gonna-
to help you find your scream.
Well, I'm not scared, Rick. I'm furious.
Then
She's
act
furious.
All I'm getting from you now is that you're hurt and confused and
She threw him out,
Jeez.
but she kept a little something to remember him by.
Barb, have you seen my other crutch?
And she was still holding it when she fell asleep watching the late picture show. Hours later...
Barbara! Walter, what's going on up there? Ah! Okay, I'm coming up, but if this is a trick, you're dead, Walter.
Knock him out. Kill him.
He wasn't moving, but she sensed the story might not be over yet.
Barb, what I'm going to tell you right now is if I'm in this situation, I'm running. I'm probably not running to check his body. If I'm taking this long. If I'm taking this long, I'm running out the house. And he's no longer there on the floor. Yeah, so this is why you don't run and lose sight of him, because then you don't know where he's gone.
He vanished. She listened for his breathing, but all she heard was... At the door, she heard whispering. It was coming from inside the house.
Oh.
Oh dear.
Her voice acting is very flat.
The monsters had come to surprise her. It was a dream come true. Then she saw what kind of monsters they were, and she realized what was about to happen. She was going to be famous. And with her final breath, Barbara Finch gave the performance of her life.
What the hell?
I wasn't there myself, but I hear Barbara was magnificent. Poor girl. She had a taste for stardom. But unfortunately, so did her fans. Of course, the police blamed it all on poor Rick, who disappeared the same night. And little Walter? Hiding under his bed the whole time. He took it all pretty hard. But that's another story. As for Barbara, tucked inside the music box is all they ever found of her. Her ear.
What the hell?
I call a real eerie tale.
That's much creepier and more disturbing tone than I was ever expecting.
Edie told me all Barbara wanted was to be remembered, as absurd as that comic was. Maybe what Edie saw was a happy ending.
Jeez, that's a terrifying story. 1917, Edie's been alive throughout all these people dying. That's pretty tragic. Odin being the first, Edie being the second. Jeez, that's a rough story.
I guess now I know why Mom didn't like me playing with the music box.
Where is that music box? Yeah, see, the house creaking right now? Not what I'm wanting. Not after a creepy story like that.
It's funny. All those times I played with the music box and never found the basement key. A lot of things got left behind in the whirlwind of that last night.
I have no idea where the music box is. It must be somewhere around here. There it is. I really like this tune, but I also is now connected to a creepy story, so I don't like it anymore. They've ruined it.
Mom said the basement was off limits, unless I wanted another tetanus shot.
Sven. Edie's husband or son?
I saw Edie sneak down to the basement once, carrying packages.
I thought maybe she was hiding presents.
It turned out she was hiding a lot more than that. I remember asking Mom once about where Walter had gone. She said after Barbara died, he got as far away as he could. If
Does that
there's
mean
a
the poor
pattern
kid
in all
saw
these
his sister get
stories,
murdered and cut apart, basically?
I think it's that none of us has gotten very far.
Goodbye, everyone. I can't believe I've been down here for 30 years.
Jeez.
On that first day, after the shaking started, I didn't think I'd survive a week. But after a few days, I settled into a routine. That's what kept me sane.
Isolation
Having a
to this
schedule,
extent,
living for today.
I can't imagine anyone really enjoying.
I always expected to be dead tomorrow. But if you wait long enough, you get used to anything.
Jeez.
Even a monster on the other side of the door starts to feel normal. Almost
On
friendly.
that track.
And then one day, everything just stopped. Whatever that thing was, it was gone. Maybe it got tired of waiting. Or maybe I just got tired of being afraid.
What are those? Are those canned eggs?
It's been a week now, the longest in 30 years. I'm done waiting. I have to leave while I still can.
How do we leave? How do we leave, Walter? Oh.
I know it's out there somewhere.
I wonder if this was Walter or Sven or Odin.
Whatever killed Barbara. And Molly. And Calvin.
He's scared of the curse. He's not scared of.
Maybe this is all a mistake. But I need to stop living the same day. Even if it kills me. Whatever's out there, I want you to know I'm ready for it. I'm going to appreciate all of it, especially the food.
Yeah, after eating all those
I
canned
don't mind
pieces
if I
of
only
crap.
have a year left. Or a month. Or a single week. I'd be happy with one more day.
Jeez.
I can already imagine the sun on my face.
Walter died when I was 6. I can't believe my mom never told me he was down here.
At least the guy got a new day, I guess. Is that when they die, or it's they
I'm sure my mom was
make their
trying to
dreams
protect
come true?
me.
Is that what's happening? You have Molly, who was hungry and wanting to be satiated. You have Barbara, who wanted to get one last performance be remembered. She got that.
Maybe she was afraid I'd end up like Walter.
Oh, something's going on here where it's not. The controls are a bit iffy. Yeah, you got Barbara, who wanted to become famous and remembered. You have Odin, who wanted to escape his homeland and the curse and get away from it all.
But if she never
He did get
told
away
me
from
about
it
an
all.
uncle under the house, I can only imagine what else she was hiding. I don't want to make the same
Sky.
mistakes she made,
High protein diet with that peanut butter.
trying to
Some good
bury
fats.
something that's still alive.
You'd hope it's organic peanut butter.
Now that there's only one of us left, or maybe two,
Maybe.
I thought it was time I heard the stories for myself
Wonder where the maybe to is.
and found out what happened to everyone else. But now I'm worried the stories themselves might be the problem. Maybe we believed so much in a family curse, we made it real.
Yeah, so that's exactly how he ended up dying. Where was this train track going? I wonder.
I don't know if I should even be writing this. Maybe it'd be better if all this just died with me. But I thought you should know about your family.
She had a kid. Or
And the history you're a
he's
part
pregnant? Is that what's happening right now? Maybe I got my timelines wrong.
Though to be honest, I feel as lost as you probably do right now. I think the people in these stories believed them, for what that's worth. And when you look at the house, that history of imagination and stubbornness and madness, any of it seems possible.
Now the real question is Edith actually dead and we're just living through the story from her child's perspective? Just reliving her discoveries?
I think we've been surrounded by death for so long, we've just gotten used to it. What kind of family finishes building a cemetery before starting the house?
Yeah. That's rough.
It's embarrassing for me to admit this, but The pet cemetery made me more uncomfortable than the human one. 3 of the gerbils are mine, and 2 had been my fault. Sven built the house, but it was Edie who designed the cemetery.
Years old, 11 years old. Yeah, he's 16, eh?
I'm sure Odin's monument had been Edie's idea. My mom was always trying to move on, but for Edie, the past never went away. She could see it poking out of the water at low tide.
What is that? The shipwreck from like 100 years ago?
Edie said she dreamed about the old house every night.
Surely that wouldn't still be there after 100 years.
Edie's side was always easier for me to understand. But the older I get, the more I can see where my mom was coming from. Her dad had been pretty strict, but it wasn't enough to save her brothers. She was just trying to do better.
What do you a year and a bit. Almost 2 years. That's...
She lost 2 of her brothers, just like I did. I get why she tried so hard to protect us.
Sanjay Kumar, eh? How does he relate to the Finches?
We never found Milton's body, so my mom insisted we were putting up a monument, not a tombstone. There's so many things I wish I could ask my mom now. Part of me thinks this is what she wanted all along. For me to come back someday and find everything out for myself. But looking back on it now, if she told me there was going to be so much climbing, I never would have come when I was 22 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, so I knew she was pregnant. That's the maybe two fucking comment that she made.
I never met Grandpa Sam, but I think he and my mom had a lot in common. They were both pretty intense.
Dawn, I promise, you'll never forget this weekend.
Yes, sir.
These memories are gonna last a lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Am I gonna have to shoot anything?
It's a hunting trip, Dawn. Shooting is strongly encouraged. Perfect.
It's gonna rain the whole weekend, isn't it? I will never forget this weekend, Dad.
Okay, got it.
I'm gonna take some pictures, okay?
Just be careful. That camera's older than you are.
You're right, Dad. It's starting to clear up. Still freezing, though. Aw.
Oops. Oops. What am I going to take a picture of here?
Definitely should not have drunk all that coffee.
Back in the day, you would take these photos and then you'd take them to bloody Photoshop. That's right, a Photoshop, so you can get them printed and developed. You don't even know what the photos look like. You don't look at a screen. I legitimately have no idea what I'm going to take a photo of right now. I'm taking a photo of everything, really. Someone help a brother out here. Where do I go? What do I take a picture of? Ah! I honestly have no idea. So what I'm gonna do is search it up. Supposedly, Sam is to my left somewhere here.
Nothing quite like being outside.
Oh, there he is.
Hey!
That's a keeper. Hold still while I take a picture of you.
I'm just saying, I'm not always gonna be here, Don. You'll need to remember this stuff, if you want to survive.
I'll be fine, Dad.
You know who else thought he was gonna be fine?
Some guy who died.
Don, I'm being serious.
I know, Dad. You're always serious. Doesn't being out here make you want to chill out?
To tell you the truth, I haven't been out here in 20 years. Last time I was with my brother Calvin.
Dad!
Good eyes, Don. Before you take the shot, let me get a picture of you.
Dad, I...
Just breathe. Turn off your imagination. Focus on your target. Let me get behind you.
Do I have to do this?
Dawn, you don't have to do anything. But if you want to survive, you'll need to be strong. Great shot, Dawn! I'm proud of you, Dawn. Always remember that, okay?
Probably not easy.
Sorry, Don. Just gotta reset the timer.
Dad, it's twitching. I think
That's
it's
totally normal, Don. Just focus on the camera. Try not to think about...
Dad!
Holy shit.
Of all these stories, that's the one I wish most that my mom had told me.
Did not expect that to happen just then. What a depressing family.
Instead of hiding from death, Sam seemed to go out of his way to meet it.
I wonder how Dawn felt after all that. Be interesting to see her story. Or the continuance of her story, I guess. For an indie game, they've done really well with just everything.
After Sam
art
died,
direction, voice acting.
my mom and Edie got really close. They'd both lost a lot.
Oh, is Dawn her mom? Sam Finch, divorce contract.
Dear Kay, do you remember the way Gregory used to laugh when he thought he was alone? Like something funny was happening, but only he could see it.
It's over, Gregory. It's time to...
Hold on, sweetie. Hello? Sam, I told you I don't want to talk right now.
I wonder what he saw. What his world was like.
I'm not ready to have a kid though. We're off.
I know you did everything you could. Maybe if I hadn't called that night.
Damn it. Hold on, I don't want Gregory to hear this.
No.
I wish you could have told us. About the world he saw. There's so much I don't understand. About Gregory. About everything. But I know what happened wasn't your fault. I'm sure he's happy. And he'd want you to be happy too. Good luck, Kay. Love, Sam.
So that's what Kay is. She's husband and wife to Sam.
I can't
That's
imagine my mom
yeah.
ever writing poetry, and yet
Jeez.
A poem for Gus, who always said the wedding was a bad idea. Our father never hit us kids, at least not very hard, before the day my brother said with teenage disregard that he'd be dead before he'd see a wedding in our yard. My father made him come, of course, but Gus stood far apart, just flew his kite and bottled up the storm inside his heart. I tried to talk him out of it, but though he'd never met her, we don't need a stepmom, were the words that I
now pronounce you husband and wife. You may describe.
When the time for photos came, Dad ordered him to come here. But Gus declined, and as a sign held up his middle finger.
Needed that after that little bit of a heavy story from last one. Exploring.
The wind picked up, and panicked geese appeared and
bold
quickly
move.
went. But all the
Long
humans
story,
did that day was go inside the tent. The rain came down in buckets then, but no one seemed afraid that nature might destroy the tent our dad had crudely made.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool.
The thunder sounded much too close and full of angry power.
It's gonna
But all
get
my father
electrocuted.
said to this was, make the music louder. I wish that I could truly say I thought about you on that day. Out there on the beach alone, just you, the wind, the sea, and foam. But I didn't. Until we found you.
She never talked about him, but Mom told me once if I was a boy, they were going to name me Gus. My mom moved up to the loft after her brothers died.
22 weeks pregnant, just doing a bit of casual rock
At
climbing.
the time, it
I
was
don't
as
think
far
I could
away
do
as
it now at age 27. But sure.
She spent a summer building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay.
So that's where Mr. Sanjay Kumar came from.
Religion was another thing my mom never talked about, but I think it helped her a lot after her dad died. My mom moved to India a week after graduation and got a job teaching English. Louis was born a year later. When my dad died, I don't think Mom knew where else to go. I'm sure Edie was happy to have her back. And to see kids in the house again.
What a house stuck in.
The house had to get a little
time
bigger,
is-
but Edie was used to that.
It's completely frozen in time. They could never move on. It's a bit tough.
And for a while, things were good. Almost normal. But it didn't last.
Crazy part of people. Some people like
Beginning
not
of
to
the
the same
end was
extent, of
Milton's
course,
10th
but-
birthday, when Edie gave him a castle. Milton Finch in The Magic Paintbrush.
Talented kid right there. Could never do a complex version of these things. I always found them so difficult. But when you could do something cool, it'd be so awesome. Even just waving your arm. It's very, very cool.
I was 4 when Milton disappeared.
So we don't know what happened to him?
Mom spent months searching for my brother. Then she sealed the doors. Whatever Milton had found in the house, Mom didn't want it getting out.
What did Milton find? How did he disappear? D4. Maybe he's still alive.
Mom definitely blamed Edie, but I think Lewis blamed himself. After he graduated, he just spent more and more time in his room, until Mom got him a job at the cannery.
What a bizarre little house that they got going on here. I like it though. It's got a lot of charm, character. The Bevs have done a really good job at making this place actually feel like it's been lived in. Not just some slapped together. Here's some random stuff. It's like, you can see the personalities of each individual.
Lewis's room smelled very, very familiar. That part had been lived on.
Very familiar, eh?
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse. Newly sober, I believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life. He kept working at the cannery, but he withdrew part of himself. In our sessions, I saw the same behavior. His mind began to wander. I asked him to describe it. He said
Playing
he
two
started
games at
small,
once.
imagining a labyrinth. He'd feel his way about. Then something moved. Bats. And toads. And things that have not names. He knew it was all in his head. But he took it very seriously. I had hoped he'd find himself.
Jeez.
But he found something more. I worried about him then. Daydreaming at the cannery. I spoke with his boss. But he said Lewis had become a model employee. Methodical, tireless, focused.
A brainless drone is a model employee, you know? No personality.
Like a whole new Lewis.
Of course
So I let
that's
him
the
go
model
on.
employee.
even encouraged him. It seemed very promising at first.
No hindsight's
He told me
2020,
he'd
but
made a
come on,
new
man.
friend.
This psychiatrist.
On the edge of a city he named Louis Toby. He built the city up slowly, brick by brick. Then he made musicians.
This kid's creative, man. I know he's not a kid, but you know what I mean.
And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band.
Trying to control both these things at the same time is like trying to pat your head and rub your
And he was
stomach.
always humming something. Every day his imagination grew stronger. He no longer spoke at the cannery. But his chopping was as reliable as ever. Then one day it struck him that all the cheering crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination, so he could do whatever he wished. He held an election for mayor. And he won. They begged him to stay, but his mind was already wandering. It became a game for him. He'd conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville. St. Louis.
I can see what they're doing here with the complexity of the game. It
started
becomes harder and
drifting
harder
away
to
from our
actually
reality.
concentrate on the fish making. Thus, I'm pretty sure they're trying to express how his mind would have actually been working. Like, he's focusing less
Minneapolis.
and less and getting
Until
distracted
one day
more
he
and
forgot to go
more.
home from the cannery.
And he's not seeing his work anymore.
Even as his mother pleaded with him, part of Louis kept sailing on.
Seeing less and less of the world, seeing less and less of his work. This guy's gonna lose his hand shortly. But you know
In
what
Louisburg,
hasn't?
he heard
The
rumors
clarity
of
of the
a
fish.
handsome queen.
A little bit of RPG mechanics, eh? What's going on here? Even
The queen
what
was
they've
on
done
her
really
own
well
quest
is
for
they've made it so you don't even need to
Radiant
look at where you're throwing the fish. Just moving your arm left to right, and then you chuck the fish away. So left, right, chop it, cut. All you're really doing is moving your hand. Your focus is purely on your adventure,
He followed the sound of her
which is electric sitar for sure.
electric sitar.
Which I guess really embodies what he was feeling. Very genius writing. Brilliant.
His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon. Even then, his logic remained sound.
Oh, can't say anything at this point.
He knew the world was all in his imagination. But he was so proud of having created it. In his own eyes,
Wonder where this is
he'd
gonna
become
end.
something greater than a king. For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming. And then it struck him that the real Lewis was not the one chopping salmon, but the one climbing the steps of a golden palace. My imagination is as real as my body, he told me. It was hard to argue with him.
Sorry for the lack of talking. I'm actually really engrossed in this plot. We would be happy now. I'm pretty sure America has it mostly legalized in most states. It was the switch before it became a switch.
He began to forget the world we know. I think it pained him to remember Lewis, the cannery worker.
Yeah, I could understand. This isn't an ideal situation for all.
He
I
began
guess,
to
especially-
despise the man with a royal contempt.
If you're never happy in your job.
I still thought I could save him. Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder.
Oh no.
The palace would be packed with his companions.
Something tells me there's no conveyor belt that he's
Wise
working
Calico
towards.
who'd insisted on advising him.
Or there's something very dangerous that he's walking towards. I know all the Finches are dead, but it's still difficult watching them go to their deaths. Especially as they get you to empathize with just their whole story, I guess. I don't know.
His queen waited, holding his crown.
Oh no, his head's gonna be chopped off. His
There was
crown,
only
he has
one
to put his
thing
head
left
down.
to do.
So I can see that, like, his head has probably manipulated this from the fact that he's just chopping those fish heads constantly. That's the true journey, you know, that's the end result.
Bend down his head.
Jeez.
And the rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
Depression, man. Not an easy thing.
My brother was really cool. I wish you could have met him.
So who are we missing at the moment? We're missing Edie. We're missing Sven, Kay, and Dawn.
Lewis and I spent a lot of time playing games together, but he was surprisingly bad at them. He died a lot. On the way back from Lewis's funeral, my mom told me to start packing. She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie. I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder. I wish we'd stayed. But I understand why we left. My mom ended up leaving everything behind. What happened that night had been coming for a long time. Maybe it should have come sooner.
This is a very interesting experience so far.
But it had to end one way or another.
There's a lot of intrigue in the story
All
that's
that's
being
left
told.
now was to tell you about that last night.
Edith. I guess this is her writing her story.
That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
"To our final night together, and all our final nights apart."
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
Why is she trying to force
the power
day?
had been
Let her
shut
be
off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance. Or that Edie had a key to it.
I'd like to hear what was being said and
The thing
discussed.
you're afraid of
There we
isn't going to end when you leave the house.
She's afraid of the
Edith
curse.
has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight.
She blames Edie for the death
We'll
of the
have the
children.
nursing home send a van for you in the morning. Okay?
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out. It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground.
We're
There'd
gonna
been
get to
an
be able to explore
earthquake
the
out
house.
in the middle of the ocean.
I did not expect this
They
coming.
called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. No, I've seen that house every day of my life.
Edie definitely
I
seems
never
like a baby
thought
old.
I'd go back to it. When the fog rolled in, I lost my way. I got turned around. I started seeing things.
Well, we know she didn't die, so it's not going to be too devastating what happens to her here. Well, it'll be interesting to see
Things
what she
I'd
discovers.
forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them.
It's kind of like parallel to Edith's entrance upon the actual current Finch house.
Things I can't explain,
I
but
like
that I
this.
need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
No.
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go!
I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car. I never saw Great Grandma Edie again. The next morning, the van came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot.
I think every kid has done this to some extent. I still do it at bloody adult at times.
We both tried to make the best of it.
Go against the air. That's it.
A few years went by. My mom didn't like to talk about it. But she started getting sick a lot. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you. I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you. But now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you. And tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way.
Don't tell me she's gonna die in pregnancy or something.
This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
Jeez. Guess I guessed it right a couple of hours ago or so. Holy shit. Well, that was an experience. Very heavy experience. Jeez. Never figured out what happened to Milton. Or Sam. Oh, sorry, not Sam. Sam's wife. that was a very short, condensed experience, to say the least. Just the way the devs, I guess, entwined the story into all those various game mechanics, and the way that the narration was delivered. I especially enjoyed how everything that was narrated was written on the screen, and I added some variance, especially as the letters flew and broke apart or scattered across the floor. It just added something to it that I haven't really experienced in another game. And the story of each Finch, just how they lead you along to all of it, a very, very interesting game. I'm still not 100% sure that I can really articulate or know what my thoughts are on exactly on it, but I can definitely say right now, without a doubt, it's the way they deliver each story in such a varied way, whether it was the baby's death or Barbara's murder or any of them really. It's very, 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 very intriguing, very interesting. It kept my attention. Don't know when I started this, but geez, they definitely paced it quite well. I don't know if I missed Odin's drawing in the book or something like that, because I feel like there's some gaps that I'm missing. So I don't know if there's a bit more story that I'm still meant to unlock or search for, or if it's just meant to be like that. But honestly, they've done a phenomenal job, and the voice actor for Edith, absolutely amazing. The soundtrack, the art direction, they've done really, really well. Simplistic gameplay, 100%. The controls just were shoddy as at best, but in saying that, the way they had varied pieces of gameplay, really, really, really cool. For a small indie studio, they've done a brilliant job. And this soundtrack that keeps going on, I'm loving it. Yeah, I guess that's it. Jeez, eh? Well, thank you very much for watching. We'll end the stream here, I guess. But what a game that was. Really, really was. A pretty brilliant experience, I'd say, all in all. Well, thanks again. If anyone end up watching this or anything like that, pass along any feedback you may have. Tell me your thoughts about the game, about the story. And thanks so much for